Today we're at MLK Park, and we just a couple days ago finished putting up the final pieces here at the park on the lodge. So we have about 8 days until the opening. It took a good solid week to put this one up. You know, the wind was kind of intense over the weekend, and so we just had to do a little like corner fixing, that kind of thing. I hate the word fix because I don't feel like it's a fixing, it's just constantly moving. So I always say zhuzh. Each building is so different that I could talk about minute little tweaks forever. So this wiring is supposed to kind of at least just hold on to the fabric, just one extra element, so it doesn't blow away. It's not beautiful, but I personally love being back here just because it has that similar feeling of the stained glass element in the skywalks. Most people don't get to see the inside just because I don't like it that people come back here. It's kind of the inside structure of the project. But it is an element that's really beautiful, so it's cool to be able to see it every once in a while. These are the turnbuckles. You gotta tighten them down every once in a while.
You see any new tears or anything?
Of course! Why are you asking these things? You always ask the worst questions. You know, rain is not that big of a deal because it gets wet and it dries out. We get little animals rolling around the bottom of these things, and like there kind of has to be a little bit of an upkeep of like grabbing the sandbags, re-hoisting them because the fabric is such a big sail. And so this wiring is not providing like a rigid structure because the overhang is so intense that we just tried to create some lattice work just to give it some structure for us to be able to tighten down some parts. You know, but the wind is going to take over anything because it is a big sail, essentially. This never hurts to give it a little zhuzh. At ArtPrize, when we were doing the sewing days, you know, I ask people to help lay stuff out because I like that people can have these moments where they're first just building the small thing and then they have a chance to actually start laying stuff next to each other. So I'll say, okay, go make a chevron, just go by these rules. So light versus dark, that's one contrast. Pattern versus the Pantone solid fabric, that's another contrast. Warm versus cool, so blues versus reds, that's another contrast. If you start with the purple dark section, you want something light to go next to it, and maybe even a pattern. I really want the eye to kind of keep flowing. It's not just like one singled in kind of vortex into a dark section or a light section, but instead it's kind of focusing in on the whole thing as a solid pattern. Now I know with traditional public sculpture, you have a plan, you have a fabricator, and it's finished. And there's a few tweaks on the way. This is very different. This is a lot more organic in the way that it's constructed. There's so many variables that it really changes, like as we're going along. Fabric donations, you know, we got more out of nowhere, like almost 2/3, like we were almost done with the whole project, and then we got this massive donations of fabric. And then we realized, oh my gosh, we need a lot of that. And we just piled it into the project. But it just happened, you know? There was no, hey, we need more fabric. It was just one person showed up and they unleashed their whole collection of cotton, beautiful fabrics. And that's awesome. That's one of the best parts of the project is that kind of question mark. What's gonna happen? It's terrifying.
Did you have to pitch Amanda's art to the city? How does that work?
Yeah, in many ways we did. Yeah, because they needed to approve the structural engineering for it, and the fact that we wanted to wrap the sky bridges, that was not an easy kind of feat to get engineers' heads wrapped around, and then instill confidence that she's done this before. So yeah, we did have to have a series of several meetings from city leadership to then the engineers and safety and traffic safety and all that kind of stuff. But we're fortunate the city kind of always comes to the table with like, let's find a way to say yes to this. I just sent an email to the team today. It's like, our job is to ensure a really great, phenomenal event, which we're gonna do, but also enabling our artists to do their best work. And so that means being there for the artists and supporting them kind of in their needs as things go on. Feeding them when they need to be fed, encouraging people to sleep, you know, that kind of thing.
I really hope that it's a big surprise. Like I want them to be surprised at how big it is and also how how fabric can be that large without being something that's professionally made. Like in the sense of they can see that someone actually sewed it. It's not something that looks like a factory has made it and it's doubled down. There are mistakes, there's bubbles, wind can cause problems, and us as humans have to work with it to try to make it better. We're at the mercy of the earth and the wind. And so we kind of have to alter ourselves to make it so that it makes it through that experience. Like just seeing this thing move around, it's a little stress inducing, but it's also because I know then it's a little bit more work for me in the future, but that's fine. That's part of it.